Joining me now to talk more about the nomination of Judge Brett Kavanaugh is Hans von Spakovsky, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Welcome back to the program.
Hey, Lauren.
You just heard about the ad wars.
Right.
Millions and millions of dollars. And it happened with Gorsuch, with Judge Gorsuch as well. Now Justice Gorsuch. In this partisan environment where everybody's heels are dug in, does an ad campaign influence a senator's decision to vote?
You know, I don't know the answer to that, but I would tell you that the ad campaigns that liberals are running are aimed at Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. But if you look at their votes on other judicial nominees that the Trump administration has done for the courts of appeal, they have voted for all of them. And those judges that have now won the courts of appeals, many of them are very conservative, just like Brett Kavanaugh is. So I think the idea that they're going to be able to change their mind, I don't think that's going to happen.
Judge Kavanaugh said last night, a judge must interpret the Constitution as written. Is he as much of an originalist as Justice Antonin Scalia was?
No, I think he is, and we know that because of his record. He's been on the Court of Appeals for more than 10 years. He's written 300 opinions, and they cover everything from the First Amendment and religious liberty rights to the Second Amendment and many other issues. And you can see in those cases that he is a textualist, someone who believes in applying the Constitution as it's written.
We listened to him last night, and I could not believe that he used the words Father John Ensler, who I know very well, and Father John was sitting in the front row, and I thought, this is a display of his Catholic faith. He talked about it a lot, as we have heard. Does religion have a role in a Supreme Court nomination?
Well, it doesn't if senators are going to use that as a religious test. And as you know, that's prohibited by the Constitution. And there were some very nasty, inappropriate questions that were asked last year for Amy Barrett.
To Judge Amy Barrett.
Right.
The dogma lives loudly within you, is what Senator Dianne Feinstein said.
Right, exactly right. And, you know, Barrett made it very clear that while she lives her life according to her religious principles, that was not going to affect the way she did her judging. And I think Brett Kavanaugh has made that also very clear again in the many, many opinions that he's written.
But doesn't faith, I mean, my faith affects what I do every day, but I also work at EWTN. It affected what I did when I worked in secular media. Isn't his faith going to affect how he thinks about, especially overturning Roe versus Wade, if that's even possible?
Not to the extent where it's going to interfere with his applying the Constitution. And I'll give you a typical example of what I mean. Look, judges are faced all the time with policies that are implemented by Congress that they may think are unwise. You know, Justice Scalia once famously said, well, it may be a stupid law, but it's constitutional. The fact that the judge thinks that something might be immoral, for example, because of their faith, as long as the Constitution says this is something the government can do, or something the Constitution says the government can't do, that's what they have to do, apply it that way.
Hans von Spakovsky, thank you so much for joining us. Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation.
Sure, thanks for having me.